I mean, and I think, well, Happy New Year, everyone.
Mm,
Because I see that we've got people here already. Salim is here as usual. Thank you. And yeah, but that has become the 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 status quo. It is that um, media has now become unapologetically propaganda.
hmm
There's no attempt to pretend.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm And that is a bit problematic. Today we have an article on dystopiaunmasked.com. And when I say today, we are, of course, January 7th, 7 days into 2026. And much has happened in these 7 days. The article on Dystopia Unmasked is When the Cost of Winning is Loss, written by Alex and published on January 4th, 2026. I still say 2025 on occasion, but we are both feet in 2026. And in 2026, that has been taken over in his style, in his maximalist, grandiloquent style by Donald Trump, who, like mastodont in a porcelain store, has kidnapped, has leader napped, has president napped President Maduro of Venezuela and abducted him to the United States in order to array him to court in Brooklyn, New York City. What do you make of all of this uh, in light of your several decades spanning political analysis of world events?
Um, but this is 1989 in
Mm,
Panama, Noriega.
mm.
It is very similar.
You've seen it before.
Yeah. So we've seen that. We've seen this one before,
We've seen it
and
before.
so it did not surprise me when I was looking at their their strategic posture. They have two choices. They can, one, go into Venezuela. That is not going to go well. I mean, I don't think the Venezuelans can stop them from landing.
hmm
There's too many options for places to land. The problem is not going to be getting in. The problem is going to be securing it, right? um, and um, and that is historically been the problem of a major power in terrain like that. Um, Venezuela is a place that has many different terrains. It's regional, huge differences in the regions, um, and and um, and those kind of geostrategic aspects are not going to right or geographic aspects are not going to go away. Okay, if they take um, if they can take Caracas, the problem is that there are too many options for guerrilla and paramilitary groups to strike, and that's not going to stop. Right? Um, you have to understand that under whatever people say, under the governments of Chavez and Maduro, they have raised the literacy rate in Venezuela from something like 11% right, to almost total literacy, so that people can vote, because they had a literary test before you could vote. So now everybody can vote. So you're telling, whose side are those people going to be on? Right? Even with the hardship, whose side are they going to be on? Right? Can't hear you.
Sorry, even with the hardships you say, do you want
Yeah.
to highlight a little bit what you mean by that?
Well, the United States' this approach around the world, and it began in Latin America. They learned, they cut their teeth in Latin America. Right? Is the sanction regime, and the sanction regime is designed to say, look, we can cut you off from heaven, And when we cut you off from heaven, your people will live in hell, and they are going to overthrow you. So play ball and stay in heaven, the heaven that we allow you into, right? So if we decide that you can only stay on the porch, then stay on the porch. If we invite you into the bedroom, then perform what you have to do in the bedroom, right?
Mm, mm.
Etc. That's how the Americans want to run it. And I'm saying that in with Venezuela, the the calculus is a bit different, because what happened is that they placed these people on the sanction, okay? But what the government gave them was a level of dignity that was not available before, right? And so people have been willing to suffer the hardship because they have more dignity, right? They basically taught these people to read, they can understand what they have to understand, etc. And they are, and they could and they could have a political voice, whereas before they did not, right? Um, and it was precisely because Chavez took more of those oil revenues towards what he was doing. And so when the sanctions began, the oil revenues were sufficient. But once the price of oil fell, then they had problems. Okay.
I'll throw in a word for you to wrestle with.
Mhm.
Um, Not because I've bought into that, but because if you're living in the West, that's not the discourse you hear. If you're living in the West, the discourse you hear is that this is the worst economy. This is relying on one particular resource and distributing it to a very thin crust of elites around power. Um, so the key word is corruption. The key word you hear is corruption, is economic catastrophe, mismanagement of the resource. The Dutch disease is they're being accused of Chavez and Maduro's regimes. Um, what views do we have on that particular discourse that, from a macroeconomic point of view, Venezuela is accused of having mismanaged, misappropriated the economy, expropriated former business owners, and of having created an economic catastrophe for the country?
Well, the thing about it is that there is no doubt. I think they themselves admit to that. Okay, they admit that there are problems, right? And in the sanction busting regimes, you always have sufficient, because you have to be so you have to be so circuitous that it lends itself to corruption. Okay, so it's almost as if you can push somebody there, and then you can reliably accuse them of what is going to happen when they're in that situation, right? I'm not, and I'm not condoning it. I'm not. I'm just saying that's how our world works, right? But what I would say is that under these new governments and under the sanction regimes, Venezuela is almost 90%. Um, they grow their agricultural output feeds Venezuela, right? And that was not the case before. Venezuela was an economy of imports. So, so that when you really have to dig into the detail of what happens, because that is the only way you're going to understand what's actually, with some kind of sense, what's actually going on. You will never understand what is actually going on, right? But you will be able to grasp enough of the broad trends to make us to make some kind of judgment call. And what I would say is that if you look at you know say terms like that, where Venezuelans can now eat food that they produce, etc., then you have to put yourself in in the shoes of the Venezuelan, right? Especially the Venezuelan who who was in the countryside struggling to make to make their ends meet. And then you're into an economy in which you're able to plant your food. It's not for export, and you can make some money, right? But not only you can make some money, but you also have the pride of knowing that your country is, you know, self-sufficient. I don't think that our business elite, is a bit retarded. Really, that's one of my major issues with them. I think that they're stupid, and that their stupidity is making our world unstable, and that they are committed to their stupidity with with the same with the same passion with which they had committed to the late Roman Christian period, which itself was stupid, which it ended up with that kind of bloodshed because they were dumb. They political calls which in terms of their short term interests were sensible,
Mm-hmm.
but in terms of their long term and the quality of life of general people,
Mm-hmm.
they were asinine, right?
You
And
know,
we're here again.
we're not allowed to use the expression retarded in polite society
Well,
any
the problem
longer.
is I've never been polite.
Well, but I understand what you're saying is that it is simply, as you said, unintelligent and deliberately so. If we are assuming that the people behind these policies should know better but aren't doing better. I'd
Well,
like to throw in
well,
something.
well, well I mean, I never think that people should know better and do better because
Mm,
history tells me that that is not the case, right? But that doesn't stop me from saying that that it's stupid and we do not have to go down this road. And if you are not careful, your stupidity will not only cause lives, but it will also cost you your position.
and here, a synonym in a sense for stupidity, if the objective is to not cost lives, to avert innocent loss of life, or to
Mhm.
avert loss of life as a consequence of politics in general. There is a report by Mark Weisbrot and Jeffrey Sachs that posits and argues that Venezuela experienced a large increase in mortality from 2017 to 2018. And they have a figure for it, a 31% rise in general mortality, equating to roughly 40,000 excess deaths inside of Venezuela due to the trade sanctions regimes and its implications on Venezuela.
Well, that is what um, if you read the sanctions literature,
Mm-hmm.
right,
Mm-hmm.
you realize that that's what it is for. It is to impose um, structural violence upon a state as punishment. So it's not kinetic. Right? Nobody, you're not going in there and killing, but it is so and so it is akin to a torture device.
Absolutely.
Right.
And a good friend of ours has said that sanctions regimes must be seen as modern modes of a siege. It's the modern version of the medieval siege.
I agree. I agree.
There are other authors, Alfred de Zayas and Helen Jaffe, I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. They have said that it's been over 100,000 excess deaths in Venezuela due to the US unilateral sanctions. And I think,
And the same thing in
um,
Cuba.
right? And I
Same thing in
think,
Cuba.
yes, and this has to be mentioned. This has to be
And,
mentioned. It's never
and it
mentioned.
was, I'm sorry, and it was the same thing in Haiti. Haiti is where the Europeans cut their teeth. Right?
In this
They did
regard, yes.
exactly the same thing in Haiti. If you
Mm,
study Haiti, you can understand exactly what is going to happen because that
mm.
gives you all of the patterns. Right. The
That's
Haitians
it.
in 1860s, I think it was. They they were presented with a bill from the French of 41 million, right? And they said, well, where does this come from? We haven't received this. So
Mm-hmm.
they investigated it and they found out that there was a whole load of corruption going on. Most of the malfeasance was on the side of the French.
Yes.
And so in order, and this is a warning, in order to not be seen as cooperative into the international order, they
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
agreed to
Mm-hmm.
pay around half of the bill that they had just agreed had nothing to do with them,
Yes.
right? So and and they paid it under great hardship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the French leveraged their position to set up a Haitian central bank. They took they directly took taxes first and then paid the government. So they got paid first, right? They ended up exporting like 80% of was it not 80%? I'm not going sorry, no percentages. But what they ended up doing is a place that economy in a stranglehold. And
That's it.
then the Americans could not believe what they saw.
Hmm.
And slowly, with a guy called Farnham, began to began to inveigle themselves into the Haitian economy until they were able to replace the French. And at the point that they were able to replace the French, they were speaking with the State Department all the time. At the point that they were able to do that, then they invaded and completely restructured the Haitian economy. Right, so they were always complaining. They were always saying that they, that that the Haitians have destroyed their own economy and can't manage it. Right, so this is why. Uh, so and then and once they invaded, one of the first acts they did is when they got hold of the central bank, they took the gold from that central bank, shipped it to the United States to New York, and established Citibank. Right, and Haiti has remained underfoot ever since until Aristide had had decided to present France with a bill for restitution of what they extracted, but not of all that they extracted. The problem was that during this period when the United States had crept in and took over, the the people who Haiti owed their money to were now in the United States, right? And so what they did was that they so so that what has happened ever since is that the interest in the Haitian economy are major American interests, right? Some of them major Zionist interests also, um, and and so that economy is run as it is as a point of extraction, but as a forever living example of what happens when black people um, exert their independent interests, right, in, in their favor.
You mentioned black interests. I'd like to pick up on that in a discreet manner, but let's go through the titles and subtitles of the present article on Dystopia Unmasked today,
Mhm.
that you put up on January 4th, when the cost of winning is loss. I'd like to go through the different subtitles, but before we get into that, maybe a few words about why you chose this title. For the just why did you title your reflection on what has happened in Venezuela recently, when the cost of winning is loss?
Because I am really highlighting the strategic stupidity
Mm.
of the United States.
So what have they won and what have they lost? Let me ask simply this
Well,
way.
they took Maduro.
They took Maduro.
That
They
that
decapitated the
that's a
government.
win. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
a win. They but the government is still operational, so they haven't decapitated the government.
Mm.
But I'm saying that strategically they're beating their chests and so on. But this, as far as I can see, um, is a loss, and this is why. And the article is then explaining why I think it's a loss.
Hmm. 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 Um, so winning and losing. And one thing I want to throw in also is, what do you estimate are the chances for a civil war in Venezuela? Do you see that as a possibility?
Well, civil war is possible if you have um, if you have an interest group that is able to maintain a large enough military presence to make it a civil war.
Hmm. But the population, we are told, was equipped over the past 24 months, and intensely so over the past 12 months, with guns and armaments, and um, by the Maduro government, when there was a 50 million US dollar bounty put on his head. And that means they've decentralized, in a sense, the ability of the country, from the military to the population, to resist not only a foreign intervention, foreign invasion, but possibly a foreign placed, foreign backed leadership of the country. And we
Well,
haven't heard
well,
much.
I think what has happened with Machado is it tells you that tells you what is going on, right?
Hmm.
And the fact that the United States remained off the coast of Venezuela for 5 months tells
Yes,
you what's going on. I mean, that is a long time um,
the
to keep
fleet.
a fleet in the water on an operation at which not a shot is fired.
Hmm.
Right? And that's a large fleet for an embargo.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right?
Hmm. Hmm.
This whole operation has cost them at least 2.2 billion. Right? And I mean, and it makes no sense militarily. You keep them in that water even in the hurricane season. They should have arrived at the end of the hurricane season. What, did they arrive expecting that they would have been over before the hurricane season? If so, why not? Why wasn't
Hmm.
it over? Right?
Hmm.
And then so you begin in mid August, and you don't secure any significant um, um, gain until January, which you should take Maduro. Okay,
Mm, mm, mm,
and
mm,
the strategic calculus is that you cannot leave yet because it's a pressure, it's a siege, and you haven't achieved your goal. Now, um, Trump is talking about a delivery of how many barrels of oil, all right, or how much worth of oil, whatever it is, right? But
mm,
but so what is very clear is that this is a shakedown operation, right? So here it is. We are there. You are going to pay us um, tribute if you don't want
mm,
us to come and land in your land,
mm.
right? And so it doesn't make sense militarily.
How about legally? You write that there's a legal perspective to have had to have on this, and you say that there are perspectives on this from a legal point of view that
Mhm.
the reader, the audience, should consider.
Okay. So my opinion of international law is that it is always a law of treaty.
Hmm.
Oh, sorry, I haven't engaged. We haven't engaged with any of the comments.
Oh,
And I see
I'll
that
take care of
Anurag
that.
has said it's 4 to 5 million barrels. Okay, thank you very
Yes,
much.
indeed.
Yeah,
Thank you, indeed.
yeah. Um. So my opinion of international law is that it's always a law of treaty, and so it's always a law of interests, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's not that I think that international law is some sacred principle, but it it gives the what is it? It gives the temperature of the interests committed to stability. Okay, and so that's how I read international law. But there are some basic principles, and so one of the principles is that um, extradition requires two sovereignties, and an agreement between two sovereignties. So if you're extraditing Maduro, what is the sovereignty that i- is on the other side agreeing and negotiating the terms of transfer of a human body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that doesn't make sense. Right. So that what you have is one power having to go in and to manufacture the legitimacy, right? Or no, to manufacture legitimization for their actions,
Yes.
right? And so it cannot stand on on any principle of international law. So then you have to bring the principle of criminality and the assumption that you are the one to deal with the criminal,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Yes.
but then that assumption means that it should cut both ways. So
Mm-hmm.
in order to stop it from cutting both ways, you have to make it we call it caput lupinum, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to
Mm-hmm.
manufacture in this other that this person is basically beyond the law,
Yes.
right? Because any legal thinking will will come undone, right? It cannot be
Absolutely.
tied up in legal terms. So the only way you can do it is to move them into the category of caput lupinum, right? Okay, maybe I need to explain what that is. So, carpet lupinum is when you place a person beyond the law. The person is so, the person, what the person has done is so abominable that they are beyond the law. So anybody can take their head without consequence,
That's it.
right? So that's what they had to do. They had to manufacture carpet lupinum. So, and in that, they put 50 million bounty. Nobody took it, right?
That
So
I
they had to
have
go
my
and take it themselves, right?
I have my question. This particular aspect. Well, please do finish. But this particular aspect, from the moment we heard that he had been extracted, kidnapped, I was wondering who sold him out. There must be a rat in all of this. And the
Well,
furthest I've pardon me?
of course, they flew into Caracas with helicopters. Helicopters are damn noisy.
I
Hey,
wanted to say they must have had silencers, or he must have a very deep sleep.
so they don't need manufacturing consent, but at that point they came to an arrangement.
Hmm.
So the 4 to 5 million barrels of oil, right? That had to they agreed terms already because right, um, so that it makes whoever stepped up, but also when they in the taking of Maduro, I think 30 of Cuban special forces were killed. Right,
Mm-hmm.
I think the person who in Maduro's bodyguard who arranged he was the rat. He died. He was killed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
but all of this is just it's kind of squeeze. It's almost like you're having to wring the rag, and then some of it rolls out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is not part of what is on the media. Yeah. So I think we have to now wait because it's too. It's what? It's 4 days since the
Mm-hmm.
extraction. I say
Yes.
within about, give it 12 to days to 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that the Americans are running around, like Miller and so on, beating their chest, that a lot of it is going to come undone because
You know, um,
one moment, because the problem is, here's the problem: when you do things like that, you have to be quiet. But these guys don't have the sense to do that, right? They do not have the sense to do that,
mm-hmm.
and yeah, they don't have that sense, and so that's why it's going to come undone because there are too many loose ends hanging about Louis. That's why you don't say anything. Okay. You let people make assumptions and you don't say anything because then you have more of a chance of, yeah. But now the whole narrative is going to be based upon picking apart the narrative that they have spun.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with the Trump administration is that in Britain they say they couldn't organize a piss up in a brewery. A piece of
Mm-hmm.
business. They couldn't organize a drink up in a brewery. Right. So in a brewery is a
Yes,
place where you have all the alcohol being made, and even they could they're embarrassing.
exactly. I'm reminded of Edward Luttwak.
Hmm.
When I heard the news, I was reminded of two things that crossed my mind. One was the failed coup attempt in Turkey a couple of years ago,
Hmm.
that failed, and the reason it failed is connected to the second thing that shot through my head, is that there is an author in the social sciences. There are
Hmm.
several, of course, but this is the particular one that in my time
Hmm.
studying this kind of political coup material. Edward Luttwak is his name. And Luttwak is known to have spelt out the criteria for a successful coup. And when in Turkey the coup failed, I remember somebody went and pulled him out of his farm in Argentina, where he popped up and explained a coup that tries to decapitate the country and fails at that, fails. So when they tried the coup and Erdogan couldn't be uh, taken out of the country or taken out, um, Lutwak was heard saying that they failed at implementing the blueprint that he has written about so successfully, that has made him famous. And so this case, I felt Lutwak must be somewhere sitting in Argentina somewhere, cheering because this was done perfectly. But as you said at the beginning of this conversation, just because you've succeeded with step one doesn't mean you can hold what you have
Yeah.
thusly. Pardon me?
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yes. I'm agreeing. Yeah.
And I strongly recommend looking up Lutwak. I remember reading him with much gain back in the day about how to conduct a coup. Um, Now, in your paper for today, you also speak of the media manufacturing consent, criminal charges as political pretext. I see the media in those words, manufacturing consent, but your position was more about the creation of a pretext.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
And you've spoken about it in the conversation about Noriega. You've spoken about Noriega, but there are some differences. And one of the differences here, in a way, is that this could lead, in my reading, to a spillover, a regional spillover. The Colombian president has mobilized the country and has been taunting Trump the same way Maduro did to come and get him too. Has spoken of the brotherliness between the two nations, has said Colombians and Venezuelans are the same. What chances do you see here of this spilling over, becoming a regional blaze rather than it staying just a
Look,
decapitation.
we have to be very clear. This is not a blaze. This is the United States. Um, y- you know, if you have a dog, male dog, and you take it for a walk, it will stop, raise its leg, pee on different places to establish its scent. And you see another dog pass and go, right?
Mm,
This is what the United States is doing. The United States is
mhm,
going, look, you people are here. You come, you put yourself here. We are scenting our territory.
mhm,
Okay, so so that nobody else has done anything. Everybody else is getting on with what they have to get on with. Right? It is the United States that
mm,
that is has decided that it needs to go and put its scent everywhere.
mm,
Okay, and it is the United States that must, after having done this, right, after spending 2.2 billion on Venezuela, you're now too deep in to leave.
and you have to sell it to your population. You have to
You
sell
have
it
to
to
sell
the.
it to your population. Yes, right, because the bill is going to show, right, right. You have to show that to Congress. So now,
Let me let me come in. Let me come in with the propaganda I've been exposed to intensely since the event happened. So here is what they've been saying. Not only did we go in and get this narco terrorist who's been poisoning the
I'm
body
listening.
politic.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did we go and get this narco terrorist who has been polluting the U.S. body politic, we got him out. We will now run the country from D.C. We are now in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to read what has happened is to say that because we now possess the 300 billion barrels, or what it is, the largest reserves on this planet, we have secured the petrodollar system, which was being threatened by the presence of a Chinese politician negotiator in Venezuela on that very day of the intervention. For had Venezuela sold that oil to China in some exclusivity, under the header of exclusivity, this would have destroyed the standing of the dollar as the world global exchange currency had the Venezuelans agreed to selling this uh, most prized resource they have in yuan instead of US dollars, which would have led to inflation. So this intervention was a preemptive counter-inflationary measure by Donald Trump. So it's an
Okay.
economic success, and it's saving the petrodollar, and it is saving the U.S. domestic economic system from implosion. It is also safeguarding the continued functioning of the present U.S. infrastructure, which is specialized in the processing of the type of crude that Venezuela possesses, which, had it been sold to China exclusively, would have rendered the infrastructure on U.S. territory for the processing and refinement of crude futile, which would have created a crisis in that sector.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if I've said everything that the propaganda has hit me with, but this is basically the discourse of justificatory jubilation that has been put to the public out there.
Well, I would say if that's the best they can do, then I don't know if you know cricket, but then they're on a
Not
losing wicket.
what
If that
happens
is
if I
the
admit
best thing
to
they
not
can
know.
do, then they're on a losing wicket. Uh, um, a losing wicket is a wicket that it favors the person who is bowling,
Hmm.
throwing the ball to you, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So as a batsman, you're there in there defending a wicket, that in the favor of the bowler.
Mm, mhm,
Okay?
mhm, mhm, mhm.
And so, if that's the best they can do, then they're on a losing wicket.
But they've saved the petrodollar system. They've saved the
No, they have.
currency as an.
This is like what Venezuela supplies to China is like 4% of of Chinese oil. 4%, right? It's right across the other side of the world. The transportation cost is significant. Okay,
Mm,
the
mm,
bigger the ship you have, is that means you can't take it through the Suez. You have to go all the way around Africa. That just
mm,
um, you can't pass it through the Panama Canal, right?
mm,
But
mm,
to handle those that to handle you need to reduce your transportation cost as a percentage of the cargo.
mhm,
Okay, so
mhm,
the size of ships they have, they can't take any shortcuts,
mm,
right?
mm.
It doesn't make sense. They're too stupid. I want to curse how stupid the arguments they have, right?
Mm.
And they are depending upon a population that has no way to put context to any of these things.
Let me give you the context they give us. The context they give us is that the Department of War has 1 trillion, yes, $1 trillion worth of a budget. It used to be the DOD budget. Now it's the DOW budget, the Department
Yeah,
of Winning Wars budget.
yeah, and
Well, this is the context. We have the
but they,
means. Pardon me.
no, and
Well,
you think that that the dollar order is dependent only upon the coercion of killing?
but
If
that's
that
what
is
they're.
how you think about it, right, then you're a jackass.
But
Okay?
but let me press you. Let me press you.
Yes.
It helps nothing to insult them. They'll kill you. I'm right and you're dead. That's the
Yes.
situation they've put
Yes,
up now.
and that is that is because what happens is that you end up in exactly this situation in which you had to spend 2.2 billion in to establish your capacity to bully, right? That all military planners looking at that going, wait a minute, wait a minute. So once you ensure
Mm,
that you frame it so that it becomes political, the American politicians can't keep their hand out of the thing, and so you're no longer dealing with military strategists. You're trying with military strategists trying to work around
mm,
stupid politicians. Okay, so that the way that what you would see is a change in the way that these things are framed, right? You'll see the difference in the way that the Chinese frame Taiwan, that the Russians frame Ukraine, right?
but let us talk about the other aspect. The other
Mhm,
aspect that we've spoken about in this program was the strategic minerals. All in all, if the number is correct, 26 trillion US dollars is what Venezuela is worth in terms of its geo strategic mineral worth.
mhm.
26 to 27 trillion US dollars. Isn't the US now in possession, directly or indirectly, depending on the staff it can put in place, depending on how it can maintain stability, maybe bribing all of the leaders of the socialist party to accept? Yep.
I may have farms in Guyana,
Hmm.
but I am in the UK. I can't eat the chicken.
Aren't you worried about your neighboring country being in this quagmire type of situation?
Guyanese are celebrating, but I think I was talking. I said Robert Romano and I was exchanging some messages yesterday, I was saying to him that, when your neighbor's dog, i- uh, when your so when your neighbor's dog bites his neighbor that you don't like,
Mm-hmm.
you might celebrate. But the problem you
Mm-hmm.
have is now the dog has a taste for human flesh.
You don't want to meet that dog at night.
Right? And so it's a level, um, the point is that the point I'm making about the United States is that they're saying that there are these chickens in Venezuela. The
Mm,
problem is, historically, they have not been willing to ensure that when they're extracting, that they invest enough in the Venezuelan capacity to produce chickens, right? That could make it stable. So you end up with this thing of where the extraction leaves the economy becoming steadily more unstable, and then you behave when the instability comes and the backlash comes, you behave as if it has nothing to do with you, right?
the reactive nature of what is going on.
Yes. So
Mm,
yeah, so um the so what you end up getting is that they're they are now in the international order
mhm,
suffering the consequences of the kind of instabilities that come when you act like that. And instead of stepping back, this is why I say that they needed an Augustus and they selected a
mhm.
Commodus, right?
Yes,
That you
yes.
need the person that goes, no, we need to redesign this system if we're going to get at least another 30 years out of it,
Mm,
right? Instead, they produce. I mean, gorillas are not stupid, right? But he's beating. You look at this guy Stephen Miller beating his chest. You look at Trump. They, these guys, they're gangsters.
but this is, I mean,
But
this
no,
is why you
no,
write.
but sorry, I'm calling them gangsters. But many of the gangsters I have met,
Mm, mm,
especially the ones that survive.
mhm,
So he's been a gangster for 30 years,
how did
right?
you do
You sit down to talk with them, and they're intelligent. They usually have some kind of culture, right? And and they understand. I mean, but what they have done is that they had to choose a peculiar kind of violence in order to secure their power.
it? Mm,
Okay. Now, what you're seeing, but what I am seeing with this American elite is that they, it's almost like you get to exist in a context that it bears very little relationship to reality anymore, right? And you can then behave in that very special space
mhm,
as if the world is is obligated to behave like that. And when it doesn't, you throw a tantrum. That's their problem. They need an Augustus. So what is going to happen is that if they continue to do that, they themselves are going to suffer backlash. And that
mm,
backlash is very likely to come from their military. Why?
mhm,
Because it's their military that pays the price. And that when you get to the point that sovereignty must make decisions for its survival, then increasingly the military must act. Uh, and
mm,
and and what for them it would would be catastrophic is when the intelligence services completely decouples from the political elite and becomes intertwined with the interest of the military. Right
mm,
now, American military doctrine, under the doctrine of the Constitution, the military holds itself subordinated, but they're holding themselves subordinated to people who they often despise, they find stupid. Okay, they cannot make proper long term decisions, and there's a point at which they have to say enough is enough.
This is a hostile takeover of a country, a regime change operation, and I can't help the feeling that this is can only be considered a successful hostile takeover um, if you look at it as a business expert. Because as a civil servant, as a political civil servant, your criteria would be different criteria. The,
Yeah, but it's not a hostile takeover. It's the hot. It is the. It is all they have proven is that they succeeded after 5 months of kidnapping Maduro.
Mm,
This is not. They have no control over anything.
they
And
haven't
the
taken
next thing
over.
that they have proven is that the Venezuelans are willing to pay protection money.
Hmm.
That's it. They have none to prove, and the Venezuelans don't have money, so they have to send them oil. Right? That's all.
Hmm. Hmm. And
Right?
earlier, sorry. You were saying
No, I'm done. I'm done.
earlier you mentioned the black people's interests, and I said I would like to pick up on it a little later. And there is this aspect that
Mhm.
has been going on in the media that strikes me as particularly absent. And I will mention it whenever I get an opportunity to speak on Venezuela. I check the data and they say that it's 4 to 5% of the population that is directly sort of part of the African diaspora. Fine. But then there's 45% of the population in Venezuela that is labeled mestizo. And this is a Creole mix of people,
Yeah, I have cousins in Venezuela.
right? That look anywhere between my skin color and yours and maybe Obama in
So
that gradient.
no, some of my cousins, you would think that they were pure white.
But then
Right?
in the data, in the statistics, they say the ethnic makeup or the, phenotypical makeup of that country is 40 to 45% originating in Europe, Europeans, and 40 to 45% mestizo Indio Creole kind of mix up. And then there's the 5% of African descent. And I look at that data, and then I look at the way the media presented the reactions of the population. Anyone can go and verify. Those celebrating the event have rather fair skin. And this is nothing against fair skin. I'm just saying that the people shown to be celebrating are the Mino Black types of Latin
Yeah.
Americans. Mino Black. I have acquaintances that will tell me that despite their phenotype bearing traits of African diasporic roots, they will tell you and go uh, to large extent
Yeah.
trying to communicate to you we are more European than
Well,
black.
I don't know. I mean, maybe, but
Mi-
one of the things that I have found is that you cannot, especially if you're from the English speaking world, you cannot assume our very cultural mediation of identities, especially black and white identities. You
Mhm.
can't assume that you can just take that wholesale and place it on places like that. Okay. And I'm just saying to you that, like, you go to Brazil, right? And you go to the Orisha, the people who are Orisha worship, right? So
Mhm.
that's traditional Yoruba religion,
Mhm.
right? And you go to some places, the high priestess is white.
Mhm.
She would class as white in our places, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
She
Mhm.
speak Yoruba. She hold herself as right. You're dealing with a cultural emergence that is very different, and you have to really understand it on its terms, right? And they're also ones who are black, and they're all together. They eat
Hmm.
together. They do their thing. Okay,
You
so
see, I'm grateful for what you're doing here because you're bringing nuance into what I was trying to communicate. And that is
mhm,
the reality on the
yeah,
terrain, which you are very familiar with for having grown up in that kind of environment. You know it uh, personally.
mm,
Um, th- but what I'm noticing is that there seems to be a super, you can superimpose
mhm,
it on two gradients, which is those that are celebrating and those that are protesting
yeah, okay. So
along.
yes, because there is one thing, all right. The this In the Spanish speaking world, we have something we call blancamiento,
Mm,
right? Which is
mhm,
called whitening your bloodline in order
mhm,
to gain social and economic prominence.
mm,
Okay?
mhm.
So
Blancamiento.
it's called blancamiento. Blanca is white, right? So it's like whitening.
Mm,
So, so, so um, the privileged of those regions are usually the lighter skinned ones. Okay? And that is how the order is. However, you cannot just take the Anglosphere's experience of how these things are constructed and just export it to those places.
mhm,
Okay, like somebody who is white in appearance is still my family member,
mhm,
and I am still theirs. I mean, they're going to be social nuances, right? But you're dealing with a very different geometry of relations,
mm.
right? Which produces very different kinds of politics.
And this is where Chavez's and Maduro's work in the past
Hmm
20 years, 25 years has been to uh, support through programs of social uplift, education, health, sanitation.
hmm
Um, what are we forgetting? Housing. Uh,
hmm
in those population groups that are of darker hue, they felt elevated, they felt recognized, they felt seen, and they've benefited from the oil wealth.
hmm
And those
Yeah.
people who were expropriated for, as in Cuba, work and and can now be found in Florida, um, and Miami, is these exiled former owners and exiled business people, the entrepreneurial class that was expropriated uh, in the expansion of the socialist programs. So these are there's a dividing line there that is never spelt out in Western media.
No, and because Western media, like them, want to go back and turn the clock back. The problem is that you cannot do that. You try to do that now, and well, and they will end up dead. They will return to Venezuela, and they will end up dead because what has happened is that Venezuela has now a very entrenched gang culture, and they basically see themselves like Robin Hoods. Okay, so they're going to kill them, right? They're gonna bring in the police, etc. But they're not stopping that the because the structural the structure of the social situation has always results in that. I mean, that was exactly the same kind of situation that was in southern Spain, where Gramsci is from. Gramsci grew up in
Oh,
Sardinia,
that's a good one. Hmm.
right? Very similar. right? Because once you have those kinds of once you have those kinds of social conditions,
Mm,
it's like social arithmetic, right?
mhm,
Now, sorry, Anurag made a comment, and a few comments I was looking at is that I think India has a contract for oil extraction in Guyana along with US firms. Yes, there are Indian firms in the oil extraction off the coast of Guyana, Chinese
mhm,
firms, and American and British ones,
mm,
and they often share contracts.
mm,
Okay,
mm,
so they often share contracts, so that you'll find that the Chinese have a certain amount of percentage, and they bring their different skill sets to the thing, right?
mhm, mhm,
Yeah.
mhm, mhm. This
Um.
is it is now 1:30 your time, 12:30 my time. We've gone through
No,
quite
it's 11:31 my time.
sorry, 11:31, sorry, 11:31 your time, 12:31 my time.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to point out we've gone through quite a number of facets. And your conclusion is that there is a core error, that what has been traded here uh, is universal constraint for tactical theater, sorry, for
Yeah.
tactical theater. And um, I want to get to that, but there are two things that are very loud at the back of my mind, which is the threats that have been uttered by the governing parties in the US. Such and such should watch their ass. That's a quote. That's a quote from from a head of state. And Cuba should watch itself. Cuba is, um, I don't remember what he said, the words he used, but he said Cuba is on notice, something like that. Now, could you say two, three words about what you envisage happening with regards to Cuba in light of what has happened in Venezuela? And then perhaps, uh, I mean, maybe even say a few words about Greenland, and that would close that, because the sentence that we've heard for Greenland is that I mean, I'm sitting here laughing when I hear him speak, but it runs cold shivers down my spine, because here you have this very very sort of eloquent and affable Danish foreign minister pleading to a diplomatic decorum that no longer exists. She's pleading she's pleading to a bunch of people who want to hammer everything with gunboat diplomacy. And she's pleading, talking about multilateralism and polite politics. And these people are talking about watch your ass.
I don't. I struggle to
So,
comment seriously. I mean,
so
it's not
Cuba,
it's so funny that it's actually not funny.
and hold on, I'll give you, I'll just say this, and then you take us out of this conversation today. So Cuba, Greenland, Nigeria. I mean,
Hmm.
this is a global expansion, and as I say this, the past 2 3 weeks I've felt deeply insecure in my core, at the level of my bone marrow, because wherever the U.S. intervenes, you don't know whether it's going to leave the place with depleted uranium and malformations like in Fallujah. We don't know what they're doing and what they're planning to do in the sub Saharan region. They've bombed Nigeria. Then
Hmm.
they went and abducted the president of Venezuela. They're threatening Cuba, and they're threatening the European Union by way of Greenland. So,
Hmm.
what is this? Where is this going?
Um.
I don't
Well,
even want to mention Taiwan in all of this.
I mean, the reason why I the point I was making in the article is that what the United States has done is created the kind of precedence
Mhm.
that becomes a justification,
Mhm.
becomes justificatory for states legitimizing their action,
Mhm.
right? Um, the Chinese are seem to be a bit more sophisticated than to attempt to take out a leader because he's a criminal,
Mhm.
right? Their understanding, I imagine, is that that's your sovereign space. You do what the hell you like, right? But
Yes.
we will we will reward stability and rule of law because we need rule of law for our contracts,
Mhm.
right? So that the Chinese have taken a very, and I'm using this to come to the United States, right? Because I think you have to give contrast. The Chinese have taken a very pragmatic, um, um, seduction of states into an order, and they require a rules-based order in order to do it,
Mm.
right? That is deeply unsettling for the Europeans and the Americans
Mm.
because the Chinese have done this. They haven't overthrown any government. If they've lost money, they've stepped out and they just came back, right? Because it exposes them, and and they have to admit that it's a better strategy. Okay, the only thing that the Americans can do is say, okay, when we can walk in and we can destroy, and you can't do anything about it. But to destroy, they have to pick up the cost. And then they have to pick up the cost of rebuilding, whilst the Chinese also are coming in and also picking up the cost of the rebuilding.
Mhm.
Right. So in their calculation, well, you know what? Swings and roundabouts, we're not losing. Right? We bring stability. We will extract more value out of stability than we will out of instability. You can continue with that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, the American attitude to Cuba, because Cuba has a government they don't approve of, has been to place them under what I think is 60 something years of sanctions. It has not worked. It has made life very difficult for Cubans, and they hate the Americans,
Mhm.
right? They hate them as if they're Satan, right? And but they don't. But they're selective. They have enough sense and education not to hate the American people. They hate the government,
Mhm.
and the Americans cannot learn, right? Because ultimately, the reason that they hold these positions, they are not rational reasons,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
They are rationalized affective reasons.
Mhm.
So we can't expect them, I do not expect them to change.
Yes.
Okay. So if they could, the only reason that they have not yet invaded Cuba in those 60 years is because they couldn't. They tried, and it was most embarrassing for them. Bay of Pigs, right? They tried numerous ways of assassinating Castro, but Castro did exactly what Chavez did. He
Mhm.
educated, right? Cuban doctors go and visit their patients in the rural areas. They go and visit their patients at home. At home. Even today, some of them have to do it on horseback because of the terrain, right? But that is what Cuba established a culture of care. So
Yes.
even in their hardship, they have established a culture of care.
Mhm.
So on for 60 years, they have not gone in. Now what they're figuring is now that the Castro clan, right? And
Mhm.
Castro was not born in in Latin America, right? He was not born in the Caribbean because Cuba is in the Caribbean.
Mhm.
Castro was born in Spain. He's Galician.
I thought it was Argentinian.
No, no, born in Galicia.
Wait. I have to reveal my ignorance here.
Yeah, no, no.
What about the Che Guevara?
She is born well, the name She tells you, yeah, he's from
Mm.
Argentina.
Okay, so that what it
Yeah,
was that.
yeah.
I didn't remember that.
It's kind of like
Okay.
slang. Yeah, it's almost slang.
hmm hmm
So yeah, where am I? So all I'm saying is that Hmm. sorry, I've been working away. I have a few nights in which I haven't slept, so I'm a bit tired. Great. Um, so what I'm saying is that they can, if they try and they succeed, fine. But and that because they will, and it's not that I'm not saying that I want them to do it,
hmm
but I'm saying that they are compelled to try anyway.
hmm
Okay,
hmm
and
hmm
that level of structural violence, which is constantly applied, which is not even removed by Obama. Well, I do any whatever. Yeah, that 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 is that that is that is more American than apple pie. Okay, and that's not the American people,
hmm
right? Because you meet the American people, they're most you're struck by two things. One is how is their friendliness.
hmm
Two, that they can be very generous.
hmm
And three, that they are politically naive to the point of stupidity. And so you just have to make excuses for them, right? And but it also means that the political elite treat them as if they're stupid,
hmm
in ways that are embarrassing. They could not get away with that in Europe. Maybe to some extent in Britain, France, Spain, Germany, they would roast them alive. Yeah. So
Very, very sad. Very sad.
yeah.
Absolutely sad.
So that when you get an American leader who turns around and says, "Well, the Gulf of Mexico should be the Gulf of America," yeah, that is appealing to a particular, you know. You have to remember that because when you as you travel, because and I did as a young man. I haven't been to United States for like 30 something years, but I
And
did.
with this program, with the past track record of this program, I don't think we're getting in anytime soon.
Well, my attitude to the United States was that I love the people,
Mm.
but when I look at how you manage those people, I'm going into a place in which policing polices me by my color in ways
Mm-hmm.
that could cost me my life. Why would I going there?
Mm-hmm.
For what?
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Why would I do that to myself? So on a point of principle, I decided I'm not going back.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, I love American people. I've traveled across United States,
Mm.
especially in the countryside. Right.
Really?
They are warm. They are warm. They are friendly. They will invite you into their houses. They will feed you. Yeah. Um. Yeah. They're
You're
lovely.
right. You're right. You're right. You're right.
Right?
You're right.
But
Yes.
they're elite. The elite takes those qualities of those people and use it for predation. Yeah. Yeah. Them American people. I mean, when people are talking about the communitarian racism and so on, right, in cities yeah. But I mean, I've gone there and I've moved amongst white people in the United States, and because I also do not um, exhibit the same social cues. Like when bees go into the hive, they have a particular kind of scent. So
Mm-hmm.
because I react differently, I get treated differently. and I get it,
It's
right?
mm,
I
that
get it. I
the
understand.
Globetrotters experience. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I understand all of that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But whether I've traveled in Black American communities, white American communities, right? I haven't really dealt with Korean communities, etc. Right? I've always found that, yeah, I've always found that about them, right? Even including in ghettos.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone, I've done crazy things. I've gone into to really um, areas that people fear for their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Gone in
Mm-hmm.
there and I don't know anybody and made friends and slept in the place on my bicycle, right? Right? Come out. I've done that, okay? And I bear witness to generally the generosity and a certain kind of beauty to the qualities of the American people. So I'm being honest. My problem is is that the elite are a pack of bandits.
mm.
Right? They're a pack of bandits, and not only that they're bandits, but they're stupid bandits.
Historically so.
Yeah.
Historically so.
So that now they've built an order which has survived since the 1940s, right? So, and they built the order, but as time has gone on, they have been revealed as being of not being of the quality that could sustain that over a period of more than two generations. That's my problem with them. And I think that is the when you're listening to or you're reading the documents of like the Chinese or the Russians,
Mm-hmm.
they you can see that they acknowledge that they could not have authored an order like that. They don't want to break it.
Mm.
So that's what I was saying when I first said, I think last year when I said it's almost as if they want they want to selectively castrate the United States. They just want to remove one testicle. They want to keep the other one, right? So that's what you're seeing, right?
Mm.
Because they cannot they cannot the dollar order provides a level of exchange stability that no other nation wants to hold. Nobody wants to hold it. They can hold
Mhm.
it. They can do the treasury thing. Okay.
Mm.
So then we come to then I sorry, I've been talking for a while. You want me to
No, no,
go?
no, 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 no. It's
Yeah.
very important because this is context, this is nuance, this is in between the lines. And I feel like this, I was actually just thinking, this is how geopolitics ought to be consumed as
Mhm.
experience. You don't have to have this permanent feeling of being in a classroom or in a strategic, strategic boardroom.
Mm.
Um, Looking at maps and going through data and geological sedimentation uh, in connection with military operations, but the lived experience of what we are actually talking about.
Yeah.
This is, geopolitics depersonalizes our experience of the world. And that is the way to conduct geopolitics structurally and analytically. But when we speak, what is that? Yes, the Clausewitzian order.
No, the Don.
Yes, the Clausewitzian order.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, because sorry, you're
No.
talking about an approach to you're saying that's how it's because that was basically Clausewitz's
Mm,
approach.
mm,
Right? He's going,
mm,
no, you experience when you have it, you that that your plans will never survive
mhm,
contact with reality.
mhm,
Okay.
mhm,
So
mhm,
you have to have experience. right? And you have to understand. And so, if you don't understand people that you're dealing with, etc., then geopolitically, you make calls because you're not fighting an army, right? Or you're not fighting a strategy that is pure rationality. It is something that is constrained,
And there's
right?
contingencies, however.
Yeah, because of the constraint, there are
Mm-hmm.
contingencies,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you what so that really, if we are to understand the world strategically,
Mm-hmm.
we really have to understand the world, not the map.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the problems I often have had with the American elite is that, unlike the European elite, okay, because I meet Americans who go in the Peace Corps,
Oh.
and
Mm-hmm.
they are like evangelists.
Mm-hmm.
I have never understood how you could go and be in a place and remain so theologically centered that you cannot actually see in front of you what is going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
The European elite actually does not do that, right? You'll be
Yes.
traveling with people in places and you don't even know they're from the elite, and they're talking and they're asking questions, and
Yes.
they will not lecture you on how you should be doing things, right? And why this is
Yes.
such a problem, and why, right? They travel and they look and they come and they in with a family, and then they go back and to sing. They might even marry into a family like that, you know, and so on.
You know what
So,
is
mhm,
when you sorry, when you mentioned the Peace Corps, this is maybe a good point to indicate to our audience as the Peace Corps is still active, whereas US aid is no longer active. Make of this what you will.
yes, but I think that part of the American problem is that when these people have gone back, they think they know places,
Mm-hmm.
right? They think, but it's like they're hermeneutically sealed. America is so it is so theological. I mean, literally. I mean, the way that, yes, they're evangelists, so they cannot see. Yeah.
Souvenirs, memorabilia, and soul thieving. But this is so interesting because, the
Yeah.
European Union, the foreign policy of the European Union has been qualified as cloning itself, projecting itself.
Mhm.
And in a way, I always sort of lumped the US and the Europeans together in that they wanted human rights, democracy, rule of law in order to trade and interact better. You had to do the Bretton Woods Accords thing. You had to liberalize. You had to privatize. You had to reduce taxes and all of that. And today, the whole thing looks more like the EU. The Europeans like to project themselves and clone themselves, whereas the Peace Corps people and the US aid people were just sort of mapping, prospecting, seeking for investment opportunities, not so much, not so much trying to reproduce the U.S.
Okay.
model abroad.
Okay. My okay. I want to get to Denmark, and then I'll go there.
Yes, please, 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 yes.
Yeah. So, what the Americans are facing right now is that they have supply chain issues, and if they are to compete in those supply chain in those global supply chains on the terms which they would have to compete under, then um, then they cannot afford to. So what they need to do is to regionalize the supply chains. I mean, I think at the very beginning, I started talking about this, but I hadn't really understood it as I do now, right? So they need to regionalize those supply chains, and they're doing so in imperial terms. So the first one is that nobody must come in Latin America, right? Because we are pissed all over it, and everybody knows that it stinks of us. And if you're coming here, you come through us, and we must benefit. That's what they said. Okay. And then they look over there and they go to Denmark, little Denmark, right? Who also hold Kattegat and the Strait, which allows you to enter the Baltic Sea, right? So they miscalculate the importance of Denmark, and they miscalculated the importance of Denmark. No, I don't want to say it. The military cannot, right? And so they look at this big old Greenland, and they're going, well, why is that in your hands? You can't do nothing. You can't do anything with this. Give it to us. So the Danish said, well, no, this is part of Denmark's territory. We're not parting with it. The
You know,
Americans said, well, sorry.
not to cut you off, but when I was watching this, I was if it hadn't been if it weren't such a long time ago, I would have been re-traumatized because
Mm-hmm,
this is exactly the kind of discourse that on my way home from school as a teenager, preteen, when you come across these crooks, your shoe size is maybe 39. Their shoe
mm-hmm,
size is 44. They put their foot next to your sneaker that you got from your parents for your birthday, and they go, that's my shoe size, right? That's my shoe size. Why are you
mm-hmm.
wearing my shoes? Give me my shoes. And you look at this guy who's 10 years older than you, and you have to give him your shoes.
Aha. Okay, well, I was a bit different. Eh?
But
Yeah, yeah.
my guy had a fork. He had a rusty fork. He had a rusty fork, and he was looking at my shoes, going, "These are my shoes, and
So,
this is a fork, and it's for your throat." And when I listened to Trump speak to Denmark, the way I am taken back
okay,
to
I understand. I understand. Yes,
when I
yes,
was 13, and there's this crook about 400 meters away from home, and he's telling me, "Give me your sneakers or you won't get home."
okay. So that's interesting. Now, well, the way you deal with that kind of bully was something I learned very early in my life. Right? Is that I might even give you the shoes, but I will make an example of you at a time of my choosing in a manner which is public enough. And when I say public enough, people must be able to work it out, right? You might not even know who hit you, but people around will be calculating enough. I might even sacrifice my shoes, but I will get even with you in a way that you have to ask questions, and and you are condemned to be forever careful.
The chicken will come home to roost.
Yes, yes. And in Ghana we have a tradition. We call it Jumbi Lash or the Ghost Lash. It is when somebody does something to you and you observe their habits over a long period of time, and having been able to predict their habits, you choose an intervention in which, like, because the Jamilash is that you get a 2x4 plank and you wait for a place that they must pass. And as they have passed, you hit them from behind their heads and knock them out. And then you proceed to do whatever you need to do with them. And you leave them to wake up and become aware that they were assaulted. And forever question who did it. Okay. So the point of the Americans is that they are certain. This is why American doctrine, military doctrine, is that they must be big enough so that if 3 or 4 of their competitors got together, um, that they could not, they still could not outrank them. That is their official doctrine. I have to say that the Chinese are making it very expensive for them to maintain that. And not only that, but they are producing weaponry at a fraction of the cost that is often of superior quality to what they are doing. And the problem with that kind of system is that the Americans have is that it encourages a peculiar kind of nepotism that can survive congressional oversight. Okay, so you find that sometimes somebody paid $5,000 for a hammer. Okay, because it survived the oversight. So what has happened here is that it is is that you just need one more China or one more to take a position like that just to defend their own territory. Okay, and it becomes inordinately expensive for the United States to meet. But that's their doctrine, right? Because their doctrine is a doctrine of anxiety. Okay, and and they are terribly aware of this weakness in their strategy. And that is why they always act preemptively, right? They always act preemptively. Never, they see a problem arising, and the Bay of Tonkin, and this is their doctrine. So coming back to Greenland, they need to secure the supply chain. And what they're basically saying to Greenland is you need to come to terms because you cannot stop us. And we want access. And we want access like we want access. We are telling you the terms that we're going to have access. Right. And the Scandinavians are not like that. Right. Now the other one that's going to have a problem is Iceland. Right? Because once the northern route happens, because it's now the other, so once the northern route happens, if you garrison Iceland and you garrison Greenland, then right, also Ireland, then you basically, as the ships come through, right? Yes, and Finland, yes, Finland, um, yeah. So once you garrison those, but the problem with yes, you any ships coming through, you've got, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And but this is going to be inordinately expensive. You're better off if you want to do that, you're better off with a rules-based order, right? But the problem is that the Americans have realized is that they are now holding a rules-based order together, to which they are, to which they expect asymmetric benefit,
Mm. Mm.
but now they are reduced to symmetric benefit,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they don't like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. So I got there to the end of that one. Okay. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. I mean, every single point you've made since you started talking about Greenland and Denmark is quite foretelling. And in that domain, earlier I wanted to say earlier this year, in towards the end of last year, in the second half of last year, you made a video that you put on social media in which you predicted that the Westerners are coming for Africa through the Sahel region. They're coming through the north, or whatever path they'll take, they're going to Burkina Faso, they're going to Niger, they're going to Mali, for reasons that you laid out. And you said, be warned. This is last year. And just a few weeks ago, I want to say just a few days ago, we saw exactly what you predicted was going to happen when Donald Trump, in his own signature manner, struck, according to the Financial Times, an empty farm field where nothing much was happening, only to then declare that it was a devastating blow to a decimated enemy, when the Financial Times reported that what was struck was an empty field with nobody and nothing on it. Much theatrics. And we are reminded of June 26th, or when that was last year, when a devastating, decimating, destructive, I don't even remember the terminology he's chosen to use for that, what was it, midnight hammer blow for Iran happened. And I'm reminded of the mother of all bombs dropped on the mountains in Afghanistan. A signature move by Trump is to make moves that are warlike, kinetic action, but luckily nobody gets harmed. It's you know, the vacuousness of his military actions are kind of part of his signature moves now.
Hmm. Yeah, but okay, so Trump is going to last another 5 years.
Oh Lord, man.
So okay, no, sorry. The term of a U.S. president is like, is it 4 years? Sorry.
Yeah, I get
Yeah,
you. I got what
yeah,
you were saying, but you
yeah.
know,
So he just
the prospect of him last of us having to sit through this another 4 years is just
um, okay. So, but and he is condemned. If we are to take his last loss and his attempt to override the electoral process, and there are, and I'm saying this because there are documents, there has been an investigation, they are on file, right? I have them, okay? And the man tried to pervert, he tried to secure another term, even though he knew he lost the elections. And he did so by bullying, okay?
mhm.
Bullying and and bringing American activist groups who are basically paramilitary because because they are able to arm themselves and unleash them on the on Congress in order to punish Pence.
Yes,
Who, if Pence had gone with if Pence had gone with it, he would have had his other term,
yes,
and they would have spent 3 years in the courts trying to clean it up, and at the end of it, it would not have mattered, right? Because so now my calculation is that, and I'm not making a prediction. I'm saying that if we saw that before, right, then take that as the constraint pattern of this actor and expect an attempt to extend his his terms. So because
yes.
that was only passed into law in the 20th century. I can't remember who did it. I no longer do those
Mm.
things. Not, I mean, I'm not American, so I don't tend to know those things in detail. So the point here is that the Americans must regionalize. That is not Trump. That is its elite. That is its elite having worked out how they are going to go forward. They must regionalize. They literally cannot afford to compete upon the world markets for supply chain security.
Mhm.
It's not possible. They can't compete. Okay.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
what they need to do is to establish the boundaries of their regionalism. Latin America, as far as they're concerned, is theirs. Done. Panama must be theirs. China, with ports around on the Peru side, right?
Mhm.
With the kind of infrastructure that has to be invested in to ensure that the Amazon basin and other places are right. On the Peru side, you've got significant mineral deposits that you can just ship off to the port. Okay, but they are going to challenge that because, as far as they're concerned, the Chinese have built it without using them as an intermediary, and they must pay rent. All right,
Mhm.
that's the American attitude. They must pay rent, and that is the temper of their that is the temper of American power in that region. So we accept that. We know that. Now, what we're looking at are the contested eastern boundaries of that territory, which must be shared with the Europeans.
Mhm.
And and that contested eastern boundary is Africa.
Yes.
Okay. And and the European supply chains cannot survive without that. So what we saw was the first aspect of that, kind of like, well, the opening salvo was the severing of Nord Stream 2, which
Mhm.
then Europe has to then now reorient itself,
Mhm.
right? Because the, the the natural gas, which is necessary for, because, okay, step back, European industrial capacity is
Mhm.
German industrial capacity with some Scandinavian,
Yes.
some Italian, and derivative Spanish. The Spanish industrial elite being derivative of all three. So what they do is are are cooperative ventures with the three.
Yeah.
Right. That's the nature of European industrial power,
Mhm.
and they need to secure their uh, their supply chains, which had historically been under the aegis of the French. Okay, so all of the benefits that the French had derived from the CFA franc are part of the European benefits that they derive, and that is being dismantled. And
Mhm.
that is not tenable. So for that to happen, there are some changes which must happen in Europe, and we're beginning to see them. One of them is that Germany has to 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 redefine itself as a military power, which
Oh, and
is
I
already
mean,
happening.
Japan just a few days ago abolished constitutional Article 9 for non-violence, and Germany was already has
But they're
already
too far east.
too far.
For me,
Mm.
they're too far east. I'm not kind of we're sticking on the American region. The Americans will give up Japan in the sense that they need their regionalism.
Yeah.
So what once they have established the boundaries, then we're likely to see a movement into the renegotiation of how the globe is partitioned off, partitioned. Yeah. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing, and sorry, this has gone on longer than I wanted. Um, but
But
yeah,
it's important information, it's important specifics, important details that I hope our audience can pull together as the year progresses, and as this, I'm sorry, I don't have a better word for it, this Mesopotamia like politics style that they're pulling out unfolds, where you go and kidnap another
Yeah.
country's leader and then you
But but
parade him in New
but
York.
that's not new for the Americans. That's not new.
But
They
they
did it before.
parade the guy. They paraded the
No, but
guy in
that's
an
what.
open
But they did
van.
that with Noriega in
Yeah.
'89, right?
Okay.
What?
Okay.
How
I
they?
wasn't aware of that.
When when they what do you think they are doing in their media when they're talking
Yes.
about
That.
a leader that they don't like? That's exactly what. So all you're seeing is that it's the same symbolic grammar, right? The
Yes.
same grammar of power being um, transferred to when you have the leader, right? It's the humiliation,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the demonstration of power, right? That
To
they're all
parade him
Roman.
in a
If you look at them, they're
van.
very Roman,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, so coming back to Europe has to now reconfigure itself to see if it can protect its supply chains, and
Mm.
that means that African sovereignty must be subservient to that.
Yes.
Okay, so Africa, the West Africans better get ready, right? And the for the AES for Burkina Faso,
Absolutely.
Mali, and Niger, their the new transport route out is through Togo. So they've come to a deal with Togo.
Mm. Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and as they cut their deals, so that because they have to build the infrastructure, then my previous calculation, which was that I expected it to come through the Mediterranean across the Sahara, that may
Mhm.
change, right? There are two overland routes which are possible. One is through Cameroon, right? The other is now through Togo, right? The route over the supply chain route over the Sahara from the Mediterranean,
Mhm.
and that that would require significant investment in extractive infrastructure, which becomes the parallel to the Roman road. Yeah. So we're looking at. I haven't spoken about that a lot. Um, Part of it is that I don't see many African kind of readers really engaging with my work, or contacting me to talk to me about it.
It
So I
might
do that out
change
of my
very
own passion.
soon.
I do
It
that out
might
of my own
change.
passion. Yeah, but what I am saying is that it hasn't been very. I have had to. I have had to displace it
Mm.
from my kind of like my core concerns because I'm not getting the engagement.
Mm. I see what you're saying. But I think, as the day I heard that Trump had bombed Nigeria, I said, "Oh, now I want to see the look on the faces of the people who said, 'What are you talking about? Where are
Mm,
you getting this from?'" Months earlier, when you warned that due to scarcity, due to future projections of energy scarcity and resource material scarcity in Europe, there
mhm.
is something coming, dear West Africa. And I remember very well in the comment section, the most frequent comment was, "What are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about." And here we are.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, but also for the Americans, the Sokoto Sokoto
Mm,
was the wrong place,
absurd.
right? Because the Sarkin Sokoto represent the Sultan of Sokoto, right, is regionally symbolically significant.
Hmm.
right? Sokoto,
Historically, across the region.
yes, but okay. So in Hausa you say Sarki, right? The king of Sokoto,
Hmm.
right? So the 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 um the Sarkin of Sokoto sees himself one as the protector of the Muslims in the region, but also the protector of Muslim Christian relations in the region,
Mm.
and by extension, the protector of Christians in the region.
Hmm.
Right? You see how I got there, right?
Yes.
And so one of the attributes of that elite is a very pragmatic, but also um, they understand that you must live and let live. Okay. And I don't think the Americans really understand how people are going to read that,
Mm.
right? They
In
don't
that
understand
region.
how people are going to read that. It's not,
Hmm.
yes, they're, that's why I keep, they are ill suited for the job that they have.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is going to blow up in their faces in West Africa. And it's going to blow up in the faces of their ally, which is Europe. Because Europe, unlike them, Europe actually needs those supply chains,
Hmm.
right? France, the Fifth Republic of France is constructed based upon the assumption of access to those supply chains. And if they lose access to those supply chains um, in any preferential way, and they have lost it, but they still have preference,
Yes.
then the French state cannot sustain its because a significant amount of the revenues of the French state must must go to providing infrastructure and subsidizing the cost of life of French people. If they cannot sustain that, France explodes.
Mm. Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
It's France is ungovernable. Okay, and France from its very and the French Republic from its very beginnings is a very violent, um, yes, civil violent affair.
Yes.
And if you doubt me, just go and read the French national anthem. Okay.
What? Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
so what I'm saying is that there are basically there are structural elements which completely entwine Europe and Africa, and 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 European prejudices against Africans, especially in Africa, are also um, constructed in a manner that justifies the way that they have pillaged those resources,
Mm.
right? So that they can pillage them without ending up in the asylum,
Yes.
right? And so what what is going on is that they have not understood
Mm.
how they have to change. And then you have this other actor who has none of that baggage, who comes in and understands that development and profit, because profit is merchant profit or corporate profit, is dependent upon development, is dependent upon the deferral, upon the deferral faith
Mm.
in future benefit that is necessary, right? Is necessary for market led development. And so what you're seeing with the Chinese is that they are building like that. So they are building for stability, right, and development, because they understand that that is how you're going to bend. That's how you're going to make your profits. Okay, and so the problem is that if they do not change, they have lost even before they started, right? And then from the African perspective, is they are dealing with the fact that you are caught between a wolf, a snake, and a lion. And in order to survive, you have to understand how to survive.
Mm.
You have to understand that the wolf is scared of the lion. The snake will not come out when the lion and the wolf are present. And you have to understand how do you make your way through that, right? And that requires a very different kind of leadership to the ones that on in many cases that we have seen.
Yes. And this is all of what you say
Hmm.
is also encapsulated in what we've termed on this program actor invariant structural analysis,
Hmm.
right? I just picked up the other day that there's a psalm in the Bible, Psalm 109.8, and the
Hmm.
psalm in the King James version of the Bible is, "Let his days be few, and let another take his office. May his days be few, may another take his place of leadership." That particular prayer
Hmm.
is irrelevant, despite how much one might dislike Macron, despite how much one might dislike Trump or Miller.
Hmm.
What you are pointing to is actor invariant systemic and structural vectors of political dynamics.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that is just the surface layer or the upper floor of the analytical and intellectual edifice that you've erected on Dystopia Unmasked and shared with people. Because at the foundation of it, there is the work that you've been conducting. I just want to indicate it to our audience on psychopolitics. And this particular session here has been about when um, how did you put it? When the cost of winning is
Hmm.
loss. That is this
Hmm.
particular session today. But the
Hmm.
previous session, the previous editorial you had, it has been 2 years, and the load bearing lie. And let's talk about Lacan, why democracy feels possible. I want to recommend very strongly to go through our posts, dear audience, and look at the other floor of the
Hmm.
edifice that Alex has been sharing with us, which is structural systemic analysis and psychopolitical analysis, as they both fit in together to help us understand the world better. It's just the beginning of 2026. Um, it'll help enormously navigate the complexities coming our way, the bloodshed coming our way, inevitably so. And
Hmm.
it makes no difference whether it is Trump or whether it is Macron. This is systemic, this is structural. And hopefully, if you take nothing away from us, you take these two floors of the intellectual edifice that Alex has been constructing before our very eyes on
Mhm.
Dystopia Unmasked.
It certainly has been. It has been um, a grueling but rewarding 2 years. Yeah.
And I've learned an incredible amount. I've learned an incredible amount. I'm now involved in conversations with Marxists, diehard Marxists, and suddenly Lacan, however much they despise him, becomes a problem for them to contend with. And I've been enjoying the conversations we've had.
Well, they tend to
I've
leave
learned
me
an
alone.
incredible amount.
The
Pardon
Marxists
me?
leave me alone. The Marxists tend to leave me alone.
No, but it's good. We've now settled on historical dialectical materialism as a domain of exploration, and I've promised to leave Lacan out of that conversation so that we can. um,
Yeah. All right. Well, it's always a pleasure, guys. It's a new year, so happy New Year to you. Lots of love to people. I see that we have new new
members of the audience.
yes. Sorry, not sleeping a few nights does it to you, right? I've been really working away at some things, and so yeah. But yeah, and so we have to understand that the dynamics of our world is changing,
Mm,
right? Really changing. So all of those places up there in Greenland, Iceland, Finland, Norway, they just doubled, they just tripled, quadrupled, maybe 10 times their importance. Okay.
mm,
And so the dynamics of that is going to change.
mm,
And we're better off understanding the world as it is likely to emerge rather than as we would like it to.
mm.
You know, because often we have these useful fictions and make living comfortable. You better think through the implications of your discomfort before the discomfort arrives. Yeah,
That's it. Mhm.
yeah, and so you know, lots of love, but also you know, prepare for what is coming. It is not. We are now at the point that what is coming cannot be undone. And in this article, I've just partly showed you how what the Americans have done is going to unfold over the
Mm,
next 15 to 20 years with implications that they are not going to be happy with. The Jamaicans have a song. In fact, it's a proverb that is right across the region. We say, "What's sweet in goat mouth, the sour in bam bam," which means that what the goat enjoys, the goat's mouth enjoys, his backside suffers. That's
mm,
the basic meaning of the proverb, right?
mm,
And so it's sweet on this end for the Americans. The Americans have this thing of jouissance. We can
mm.
do it. You know, they love that. But I once they did it, I was shaking my head. I said, "Well, I knew you had to do it, but I was hoping you weren't that stupid."
That's the point.
Right?
That's the point.
That's my point. Yeah, yeah. So yeah. So yeah,
Jouissance it is.
jouissance.
Jouissance it is.
Yeah.
Jouissance. Exuberance. Exuberance is what we're seeing now. And
Mhm.
hubris. And
Yeah.
none embodies this better than Miller,
Yeah.
Stephen
But
Miller.
yeah. But I've seen analysts and American intellectuals whose work I've looked at and I quietly admire. I have my questions, but I quietly admire. And I just listen to them. I'm going, oh dear, oh dear. So this is psychostructural.
Hmm.
Yeah, I saw a Rand-based military analyst who I know sees it because he admits to what he sees, but he cannot escape this resource. He
Mm.
can't escape it, right?
Mm.
It's necessary. So I just okay. So that's what I'm talking about, the psychostructural or the psychopolitical. That's what I'm talking about. Can't, you know. So he has to be in a relationship of disavowal with it. It is, but it isn't. But it is. Okay. All right. Well, please, if you please invite people to follow my account if you want to, if you can, please support us. It costs money, time, and so on to do that, even just to
Mm-hmm.
maintain the library, etc. So please, and time to read and so on. So if you can support us in any way, financially, that would be good. And and thank you for taking the time to take these rather long, circuitous journeys along with us through the issues of the day.
Mm.
You know. All right.
Gratitude is all mine as well, and thank you indeed for having so much time for us today, Alex. It was very instructive. Very instructive indeed.
Lots of love. You guys, you take care. Salams. Bye.
See you next Wednesday. See you next Wednesday for Dystopia Unmasked with Alexander Carberry and myself. Next Wednesday, every Wednesday.